You know that moment when you realize your own child is trying to destroy you? Not with words, not with anger, but with pills crushed into your morning tea, with whispers behind closed doors, with phone calls made in hushed tones to people you never met. I am 73 years old, and my name is Margaret, and 3 days ago I caught my son trying to drug me so he could send me away to an asylum. They think I have Alzheimer's disease. They think I am losing my mind. They think I do not notice the way they look at me like I am already gone. But I notice everything, every single thing. And what I discovered when I pretended to swallow those pills, when I tucked them under my tongue and waited for him to leave the room, when I saw that white van pull up outside my house with the name of a psychiatric facility printed on the side, it broke something inside me that I did not know could still break. This is my story. This is what happened when I realized the person I loved most in this world had decided I was no longer worth keeping. It started 6 months ago with small things. I would forget where I put my reading glasses. I would call my son by his father's name. I would stand in the kitchen and forget why I walked in there. Normal things, things that happen to everyone my age. But my son David, he started watching me differently. He started writing things down in a little notebook. He started asking me the same questions over and over, like he was testing me. What day is it, Mom? What did you have for breakfast? Do you remember what we talked about yesterday? And I would answer him, sometimes right, sometimes wrong, because honestly, who remembers every single conversation they have? But each time I got something wrong, I would see him make a note. I would see that look cross his face. That look that said she is slipping away. That look that said we are losing her. That look that said it is time. I started finding papers in his office, medical documents, brochures for memory care facilities, articles printed from the internet about how to know when it is time to make the difficult decision. The difficult decision, as if I was a dog that needed to be put down, as if my life was something that could be decided by someone else. I confronted him once, early on, when I still thought we could talk about this like adults. I said, David, what are these papers? Why are you looking at these places? And he sat me down, took my hands in his, looked at me with those eyes that were so much like his father's eyes, and he said, Mom, I am worried about you. You are forgetting things, important things. Yesterday you left the stove on. Last week you got lost driving home from the grocery store. I am scared you are going to hurt yourself. I am scared something terrible is going to happen. And I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that this was about love, about protection, about keeping me safe. But there was something in his voice, something that did not sound like concern, something that sounded like impatience, something that sounded like he had already made up his mind and was just waiting for me to agree. So I started paying attention, really paying attention, not to my own memory, but to him, to David, to the way he moved through my house like he already owned it, to the way he looked at my furniture, my paintings, my mother's china cabinet with an appraising eye, to the phone calls he would take in the other room, speaking in low tones about property values and estate planning, and how much longer we would have to wait. And then I found the papers in his car. I was not snooping. Not really. He had asked me to get his phone charger from the glove compartment, and there they were. Documents. Legal documents. Power of attorney papers with my signature forged at the bottom. Transfer of deed papers for my house. Papers that would give him control of everything I owned. Papers that were dated for next month. Papers that were just waiting for me to be declared incompetent so they could be filed. That was when I understood. This was not about my health. This was not about keeping me safe. This was about money. This was about my house. The house his father and I bought 42 years ago. The house that is now worth over $1 million because the neighborhood got fancy and developers started circling. This was about my savings, the life insurance policy, the stocks his father left me. This was about getting rid of me so he could have it all. And he was using Alzheimer's as his weapon. He was going to have me declared mentally unfit. He was going to lock me away in some facility. He was going to take everything, and there was nothing I could do about it because who believes the old woman with memory problems when her devoted son says she is losing her mind? I know what you are thinking right now. You are thinking about your own mother, your own father, your own loved one who is slipping away. You are thinking about those moments when they forget your name, when they ask the same question 3 times in 5 minutes, when they look at you with eyes that do not quite recognize who you are anymore. You are thinking about how hard it is, how exhausting, how heartbreaking, how you sometimes wonder if it would be easier, better, kinder to let them go somewhere with professionals who know how to handle this disease. And I want you to know that I see you. I understand you. This is the hardest thing you will ever do. But I also want you to stop for just a moment and ask yourself, really ask yourself, are you doing this for them or are you doing this for you? Before I tell you what happened next, I need you to do something for me. I need you to help others who are going through this same nightmare. Right now, in the comments below this video, I want you to write these words exactly. Write, I will listen to their story. Write those 5 words. I will listen to their story, because maybe someone watching this is being silenced. Maybe someone watching this is trying to tell their family that they are still here, still present, still worthy of being heard. And maybe if enough of us promise to listen, really listen, we can save someone from being thrown away before their time. Write it now. I will listen to their story. Let that be your promise. Let that be how we build a community of people who refuse to let our elders disappear into silence. Now let me tell you about the morning everything came to a head. It was a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesday is trash day, and I could hear the garbage truck rumbling down the street. David came over early, which he had been doing more and more. He let himself in with his key, the key I gave him years ago for emergencies, the key he now used like he owned the place. He made me breakfast, scrambled eggs and toast, orange juice in my favorite glass. He was being so sweet, so attentive, asking me how I slept, telling me he wanted to spend the day with me, just the 2 of us. And I felt it, that little flutter of hope in my chest, that maybe I had been wrong, maybe those papers were something else, maybe my son still loved me after all. He set the plate in front of me, he poured my tea, and then he did something strange. He opened a pill bottle, took out 2 white tablets, crushed them with the back of a spoon right there on the counter, and stirred the powder into my tea. He did not hide it. He did not try to be sneaky. He just did it, casual as anything, and handed me the cup. Take your medicine, Mom, he said. The doctor prescribed these new pills for your memory. They are going to help you feel better. And I looked at that cup of tea, at the faint white residue swirling in the amber liquid, and I knew. I knew these were not medicine. I knew the doctor had not prescribed anything. I knew this was it. This was the moment he had been planning for. So I smiled. I took the cup. I raised it to my lips. I took a sip and I let the pills rest under my tongue, bitter and chalky and burning. I swallowed the tea, but not the pills. I kept them hidden in my mouth, tucked in my cheek, and I smiled at my son and said, "Thank you, sweetheart. I feel better already." And he smiled back. He looked relieved. He looked satisfied. He looked like a man whose plan was finally working. He told me to rest. He told me to lie down on the couch for a little while. He said he had some phone calls to make, but he would be right in the next room if I needed anything. So I lay down. I closed my eyes. I kept those pills in my mouth even though they were dissolving, even though the taste was making me gag, even though every instinct told me to spit them out right then. I waited. I listened. I heard him on the phone in the kitchen. I heard him say, "Yes, she took them. She should be sedated in about 20 minutes. You can come get her now." I heard him laugh. I heard him say, I know. I cannot believe it was this easy either. I finally have her right where I want her. And my heart, my old broken heart, it shattered into pieces so small I did not think they could ever be put back together. I waited until I heard him go upstairs. Then I got up, quiet as I could, and I went to the bathroom and I spit those pills into the sink. I rinsed my mouth over and over. I looked at myself in the mirror. My face was pale. My hands were shaking. But my eyes were clear. My mind was sharp. I was not confused. I was not losing my memory. I was a woman who had just discovered her own son was trying to drug her and lock her away. I was a woman who needed to act fast, because I knew that white van was coming. I knew men in uniforms were on their way to take me somewhere I might never come back from. I knew I had maybe 15 minutes to save my own life. I went to the window in the living room, and I looked out. The street was quiet, morning sun filtering through the oak trees. My neighbor, Mrs. Chen, was watering her garden. Everything looked so normal, so peaceful, like the world had no idea what was happening inside my house. And then I saw it, the van. White, with blue lettering on the side, Shady Pines Behavioral Health Center. It pulled up slowly and parked 3 houses down, far enough that it was not obvious, but close enough to move quickly when called. 2 men sat in the front seat, waiting, just waiting for my son to give them the signal, waiting to take me away. I have lived in this house for 42 years. I raised my son in this house. I nursed my husband through cancer in this house. I planted every flower in that garden. I painted every wall. I chose every piece of furniture. This house holds every memory I have of a life well lived, of love and loss and joy and sorrow. And my son wanted to take it from me. He wanted to erase me. He wanted to put me in a room somewhere with strangers who would feed me pills and tell me I was crazy until maybe I started to believe it myself. He wanted me gone. And the most horrible part, the part that kept echoing in my head over and over, was that he thought he was going to get away with it. He thought no one would question him. He thought everyone would believe that poor David was just doing his best for his sick mother. He thought I was too far gone to fight back. But I am not gone. I am here. I am awake. I am angry. And I am not going quietly. So I did the only thing I could think of. I grabbed my phone. I opened the camera app. I went back to the couch and I pretended to be unconscious, slumped over with my head on the armrest, eyes closed, breathing slow and deep. And I waited. I heard David come back downstairs. I heard him walk over to me. I felt him shake my shoulder gently, then harder. Mom? Mom, can you hear me? I stayed limp. I stayed quiet. I heard him pick up his phone. I heard him make the call. Okay, she is out. You can come in now. Bring the wheelchair. Make it quick. My neighbors are nosy. And then I heard the front door open. I heard footsteps. I heard voices I did not recognize. And I kept my phone hidden under my leg with the camera recording everything, every single word, every single moment, because I knew this was my only chance. This was my proof. The men from the van came in. They spoke to David in low professional tones. How long has she been like this? Has she been violent? Has she been refusing medication? And David, my son, the boy I carried for 9 months and labored for 18 hours to bring into this world, the boy I stayed up with through every fever and every nightmare, the boy I worked 2 jobs to put through college, that boy looked at these strangers and said, yes, she has been getting worse. She does not know where she is half the time. She attacked me yesterday. I have bruises. See? And I wanted to scream. I wanted to jump up and tell them he was lying. But I stayed still. I stayed silent. I let them think I was drugged and helpless, because I needed them to incriminate themselves completely. I needed them to say things they would never say if they knew I could hear them. One of the men bent down next to me. He checked my pulse. He lifted my eyelid and shone a light in my eye. She is pretty heavily sedated, he said. What did you give her? And David told him. Some crushed up sleeping pills mixed with a little something extra I got from a friend. I just needed her calm enough to transport. The facility will take over from there. They will keep her medicated. They will keep her quiet. And the man nodded like this was perfectly normal, like this happened every day, like drugging your mother against her will was just standard procedure. He pulled out some papers. You have the commitment forms signed? He asked. And David handed over a clipboard. All here. I got a doctor to sign off on it. Well, not her actual doctor, a doctor who owes me a favor, but it is all legal enough. Once she is in the facility for 72 hours, we can make it permanent. And there it was, the whole plan, laid out right in front of me, on camera, with audio, with everything I needed to prove that this was not about my health. This was about control. This was about theft. This was about making me disappear. They lifted me into a wheelchair. They strapped me in. They started wheeling me toward the door. And every second I was screaming inside. Every second I was fighting the urge to open my eyes and run. But I waited. I waited until we were outside. I waited until we were in view of the street. I waited until Mrs. Chen looked up from her garden and saw us. And then I opened my eyes. I started screaming. I started fighting against the straps. I am not sick, I yelled. He drugged me. He is trying to steal my house. Please, somebody help me, please. And Mrs. Chen dropped her watering can. She started running toward us. And David's face. Oh, you should have seen David's face. The color drained right out of it. The panic. The rage. He tried to tell Mrs. Chen that I was having an episode, that I was confused, that this was for my own good. But Mrs. Chen is not stupid. Mrs. Chen has known me for 15 years. She knows I volunteer at the library. She knows I do the crossword puzzle every morning. She knows I am sharp as a tack. And she saw right through him. What is happening here? She demanded. Margaret, are you okay? Do you want to go with these men? And I said no. I said, please call the police. I said my son is trying to commit me against my will and I have proof. And I held up my phone, still recording, and I played back the last 5 minutes of audio for her right there on the street. David's voice admitting he drugged me, the fake doctor, the plan to keep me sedated, everything. Mrs. Chen's eyes went wide. She pulled out her own phone and dialed 911 right there. The men from the van, they panicked. They unstrapped me and backed away with their hands up, saying they were just doing their job. They did not know. They were just following orders. David tried to run, actually tried to run, but Mrs. Chen's husband came out and blocked the driveway with his car. And we all stood there in the morning sun, in my quiet suburban neighborhood, while my entire life fell apart and rebuilt itself at the same time. The police came. I showed them the recording. I showed them the forged papers in David's car. I showed them the pill bottle he had used. They arrested him right there on my front lawn, handcuffs and everything. He looked at me as they put him in the police car. He looked at me with such hatred, such pure venom. "How could you do this to me?" he shouted. "I am your son. I was trying to help you." And I walked right up to that police car. I looked him in the eyes, and I said, "You were trying to erase me. You were trying to take everything I worked for my entire life. You were trying to bury me alive in some facility because you wanted my money. You stopped seeing me as your mother and started seeing me as an obstacle. And that is something I will never forgive." The police drove him away. The van left. Mrs. Chen brought me inside and made me real tea, no pills, and held my hand while I cried. If you are still watching this, if you have stayed with me through this whole terrible story, then I need to tell you something important. Subscribe to this channel. Not because I am trying to sell you something, not because I want your money, but because this channel is a place where stories like mine get told, where people who have been silenced get to speak, where families who are struggling with these impossible decisions can hear from those of us who are living it. Every week there is a new story. Every week there is someone sharing their truth, someone giving voice to the pain and the fear and the hope that comes with aging, with illness, with family betrayal, with fighting to be seen and heard and valued. When you subscribe, you are joining a community. You are saying, "I see you. I hear you. Your story matters." And maybe, just maybe, your subscription will help someone else who needs to hear that they are not alone. So click that button. Join us. Stay with us, because we are not done telling our stories. We are not done fighting to be heard. Now I need to tell you what happened next, because this story, as hard as it has been, it is not over. David was released on bail 2 days later. I had to get a restraining order. I had to change all my locks. I had to hire a lawyer to make sure those forged documents never saw the light of day. I had to go to court and prove, over and over again, that I was mentally competent, that I could manage my own affairs, that I deserved to stay in my own home. Do you know how humiliating that is? To have to prove to strangers that you are still a person? To have to take cognitive tests and answer questions like, "What year is it and who is the president?" and count backwards from 100 by sevens? To have your entire life, your entire mind, your entire worth as a human being reduced to a score on a test? I passed. Of course I passed. But the fact that I had to take the test at all, the fact that my own son's lies had put me in that position, it broke something in me that I do not think will ever fully heal. But here is the thing. Here is the part I need you to understand. I do have memory problems. I do forget things, little things, sometimes big things. I am 73 years old and my brain is not what it used to be. Some mornings I wake up and I cannot remember what day it is. Some afternoons I walk into a room and forget why I went there. Some evenings I call my neighbor by the wrong name or tell the same story I told yesterday. And that is scary. That is terrifying. Because I know what Alzheimer's looks like. I watched my mother fade away from it. I watched her forget her children, her husband, her own name. I watched her become a shell of who she once was. And I am terrified that is where I am heading. I am terrified that one day soon I really will lose my mind. That one day soon I really will need someone to take care of me. And the most horrible part is that when that day comes, I do not know who I can trust. David was my only child. I do not have other family. His father died 6 years ago. I am alone. And the person I should have been able to rely on, the person who should have protected me, he tried to destroy me instead. So, what do I do now? Who takes care of me when I really cannot take care of myself? Who makes sure I am safe when I can no longer ensure my own safety? These are the questions that keep me up at night. These are the fears that live in my chest like a constant weight. Because the truth is, I am not invincible. I am not immune to this disease. And someday, maybe someday soon, I will need help. real help. And I am so scared that there will be no one left to give it to me with kindness and dignity and love. The court case dragged on for months. David's lawyer tried to paint me as paranoid, delusional, vindictive, tried to say that I had misunderstood his intentions, that he really was just trying to help me, that the drugs were prescribed by a doctor, that the commitment papers were legitimate. But I had the recording, I had the evidence, I had Mrs. Chen and half the neighborhood testifying that I was sound of mind. The jury saw through his lies. He was convicted of attempted false imprisonment, elder abuse, and fraud. He got 3 years in prison, 3 years, for trying to steal my entire life, for trying to erase me. 3 years feels like nothing. It feels like the justice system does not understand what he took from me. Not just my house or my money, but my sense of safety, my ability to trust, my relationship with my only child. Those things you cannot put a price on. Those things do not get fixed by a prison sentence. I have not spoken to David since the trial ended. He writes me letters from prison sometimes. They sit in a box in my closet, unopened. I cannot bring myself to read them. Part of me wants to know what he has to say. Part of me hopes he is sorry, truly sorry, that he has realized what he did and wants to make amends. But a bigger part of me knows that opening those letters will only hurt me more. Because even if he is sorry, even if he begs for my forgiveness, how can I ever trust him again? How can I ever look at him without seeing the moment he crushed those pills into my tea? How can I ever forget the sound of his voice on the phone saying I finally have her right where I want her? Some betrayals are too deep. Some wounds do not heal. So I live alone now, truly alone. I have my neighbors. I have my routines. I go to the library on Tuesdays. I do my crossword puzzle every morning with my coffee. I tend my garden. I cook meals for one. I watch television in the evenings. I go to bed early and wake up early and try to fill my days with enough activity that I do not have to think about how lonely I am. And yes, I still forget things. I still have moments where my mind goes blank. I still have days where I am not sure if I am slipping further into the fog or if this is just normal aging. I keep a journal now. I write everything down, what I ate, who I talked to, what I did, because I am terrified that one day I will wake up and not know where I am, and there will be no one there to help me, and I will have no proof that I was ever fully myself. But here is what I want you to understand. Here is the real reason I am sharing this story with you, with all of you watching, with everyone who has made it this far. This is not just a story about a son who betrayed his mother. This is not just a story about elder abuse, or Alzheimer's, or family dysfunction. This is a story about value, about worth, about what we decide a human life is worth when that life is no longer young, no longer productive, no longer convenient. We live in a world that worships youth and vigor and independence. We live in a world that sees aging as a burden. We live in a world that puts our elders in facilities and visits them once a month and tells ourselves we are doing the best we can. And maybe sometimes we are. Maybe sometimes that really is the kindest option. But sometimes, too many times, we are just making the easy choice instead of the right choice. We are choosing our comfort over their dignity. We are choosing our freedom over their humanity. I am not saying every family is like mine. I am not saying every son is like David. I know there are people out there who are sacrificing everything to care for their aging parents with love and patience and grace. I know there are children who are running themselves into the ground trying to balance their own lives with the needs of parents who are slipping away. I know this is not black and white. I know this is complicated and messy and painful in ways that cannot be reduced to heroes and villains. But I am saying we need to talk about it. We need to have honest conversations about what we owe to the people who raised us, about how we treat people whose minds are failing, but whose hearts are still full, about the difference between protecting someone and controlling them, about the line between helping and erasing. These are hard conversations. These are conversations that make us uncomfortable, but they are necessary. They are vital. Because every single one of us, if we are lucky enough to live long enough, will end up on the other side of this equation. Every single one of us will someday be the elder, the inconvenient one, the one whose memory is failing, the one who needs help. And what kind of world do we want to live in when that day comes? I want to tell you something else now, something I have not told anyone, something I discovered 3 weeks after David was sentenced. I was going through old boxes in the attic, looking for my wedding album because I wanted to remember what my husband looked like when he was young and healthy and full of life. and I found letters. Letters from David to his father, written years ago when his father was sick. Letters I was never supposed to see. And in those letters, David talked about how much he resented taking care of his father, how much he hated watching him waste away, how much he wished it would just be over already so he could move on with his life, how he felt like his father's illness was stealing his future, how he could not wait for it to end so he could finally have access to the inheritance. The inheritance. That word kept appearing, over and over. "My father's illness is costing us so much money," David wrote. "The medical bills are eating through everything. If this goes on much longer, there will be nothing left. I need to start thinking about my own future. I need to protect what should be mine." Reading those letters, sitting in the dusty attic with sunlight streaming through the small window, I understood something I had been trying not to see. David did not change. David did not suddenly become a monster when he tried to commit me. David had been planning this for years, watching, waiting, calculating. His father's illness had taught him that caring for sick parents was expensive and time-consuming and got in the way of his plans. His father's death had taught him that if you just wait long enough, you get everything in the end. And when I started showing signs of memory loss, when I started forgetting little things, he saw his opportunity. He saw a way to speed up the process, a way to take control before the medical bills piled up, before the care became too burdensome, before I could spend his inheritance on my own care. He was not acting out of cruelty. He was acting out of cold, calculated self-interest. And somehow, that made it worse. I called my lawyer. I showed him the letters. We discussed whether they could be used to extend David's sentence or to prevent him from ever having any claim to my estate. But the lawyer said they were just letters, just words. They showed intent, maybe, but they did not prove anything criminal. They were just the private thoughts of a man under stress, watching his father die, expressing frustration. Any jury would see them that way. Any judge would dismiss them as irrelevant to the current case. So I put them back in the box. I put the box back in the attic, and I carried this new weight of knowledge alone, the knowledge that my son had been planning to dispose of me for years, that I was never a mother to him. I was an asset, a problem, an obstacle to be managed and eventually removed. You know what the worst part is? I still love him, even after everything, even after the drugs and the lies and the van and the trial, even after reading those letters and understanding the depth of his betrayal. I still love him, because he is my son, because I remember holding him as a baby, because I remember his first day of school, because I remember teaching him to ride a bike and helping him with homework, and sitting in the audience at his college graduation bursting with pride. Those memories do not go away just because new terrible ones have been added. That love does not disappear just because it has been thrown back in your face. And that might be the cruelest part of all of this, that I have to carry this love for someone who saw me as nothing more than a bank account, that my heart refuses to let go even though my mind knows I should. Some nights I dream about him, not the him who tried to drug me, not the him who forged documents and hired strangers to take me away, but the little boy version of him, the one who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms, the one who made me cards on Mother's Day with crayons and construction paper, the one who told me I was the best mom in the whole world, and I wake up crying because that little boy is gone. Maybe he was never really there. Maybe I just saw what I wanted to see. Maybe all parents do that. Maybe we build these beautiful narratives about our children, about who they are and who they will become, and we hold on to those narratives even when reality shows us something completely different. Maybe love makes us blind. Maybe hope makes us stupid. Maybe I should have seen the signs earlier. Maybe I should have known. But here is what I have learned in the months since all of this happened. Here is what I want to share with you before this story ends. You cannot live your life looking backward. You cannot spend every day wondering what you could have done differently. You cannot let betrayal consume you, because if you do, then the person who hurt you wins twice. They take your present and they take your past. They rob you of your memories and your future. And I refuse to let David have that power over me. I refuse to let him take anything more than he has already taken. So I wake up every morning and I choose to live. I choose to find joy in small things. I choose to be grateful for neighbors who care and lawyers who fight and a justice system that, however imperfectly, still recognize that what happened to me was wrong. I choose to keep doing my crossword puzzles and tending my garden and volunteering at the library. I choose to be a person, not a victim. I choose to be Margaret, not just someone's mother or someone's target or someone's cautionary tale. And I want you to make that choice too. Whatever you are going through, Whatever family drama or health crisis or betrayal you are dealing with, I want you to choose yourself. I want you to choose your dignity. I want you to choose your story, because you are not defined by what other people do to you. You are defined by how you respond. You are defined by whether you let the darkness win or whether you keep searching for light. And there is always light, even in the darkest situations. There is always a way forward, even when the path seems completely blocked. There is always hope, even when hope seems foolish. You just have to be willing to look for it. You just have to be willing to fight for it. You just have to be willing to believe that you are worth fighting for. Now I am going to tell you something that will probably make you angry. Something that will probably make you question everything I have told you so far. Something that might make you think I have been lying to you this whole time. But I promised you the truth, and the truth is complicated and messy, and does not always make sense. So here it is. 3 months ago, I started having trouble with more than just my memory. I started having trouble with time, with reality. I would wake up and not know what year it was. I would look at my neighbor Mrs. Chen and think she was my mother. I would sit at my kitchen table and be convinced I was in my childhood home, waiting for my father to come home from work. These episodes would last minutes, sometimes hours. And when they passed, when I came back to myself, I would be terrified, because I knew what this meant. I knew that the Alzheimer's I had been so afraid of, the disease I had watched take my mother, it was finally coming for me too. I went to a real doctor, not the fake one David had paid off, but my actual doctor, the one I have been seeing for 20 years. I had tests done, brain scans, cognitive assessments, blood work, everything, and the doctor sat me down in his office. The same office where he had told me my husband had cancer. The same office where he had held my hand through so many difficult diagnoses over the years. And he said, "Margaret, I am sorry. You have early-stage Alzheimer's disease. It is progressing slowly right now, but it will progress. There is no cure. There are medications that might slow it down, but they will not stop it. Eventually, you will need care. Eventually, you will not be able to live alone. Eventually, you will forget who you are." And I sat there in that office and I felt the entire world tilt sideways, because David had been right. Not about drugging me, not about stealing from me, not about any of the terrible things he did, but about the fundamental fact of my diagnosis. I do have Alzheimer's. I am losing my mind, slowly, gradually, inevitably. So now I have to ask myself the question I have been avoiding this entire time. What do I do now? I fought so hard to stay in my home. I fought so hard to maintain my independence. I fought so hard to prove that I was competent, that I could take care of myself, that I did not need anyone making decisions for me. But what happens in 6 months when I can no longer remember to take my medications? What happens in a year when I leave the stove on and burn the house down? What happens in 2 years when I wander out into the street and get hit by a car because I do not remember where I am or how to get home? What happens when the thing I fought so hard against becomes the thing I actually need? Who takes care of me then? Not David, never David, but who? How do I plan for a future where I will not be able to plan for myself? How do I make arrangements for my own care when I cannot trust anyone to have my best interests at heart? These are the questions that haunt me now. These are the impossible choices I face. And here is the twist. Here is the part that recontextualizes everything you have watched. I am making this video now, while I still can, while I still have the clarity and the memory and the ability to tell my story coherently. I am making this video as a record, as proof, as evidence that right now, in this moment, I am of sound mind, that I understand what is happening to me, that I am making my own choices, because I have decided something. I have decided that when the time comes, when I can no longer care for myself, I am going to go into a memory care facility, voluntarily, on my own terms, before I become a danger to myself, before I forget who I am completely. I am going to choose the thing David tried to force on me, but I am going to choose it myself, in my own time, in my own way, because the difference between being taken and choosing to go, that difference is everything. That difference is dignity. That difference is agency. That difference is the line between being erased and being honored. I have already picked the facility. I have already toured it, met the staff, looked at the rooms, asked about the programs. It is not Shady Pines, the place David tried to send me. It is a place called Meadowbrook. It is small and clean, and the staff seem genuinely kind. They have gardens that residents can work in. They have music therapy and art therapy, and activities designed to engage even people whose memories are mostly gone. They treat their residents like people, not problems. They understand that Alzheimer's does not erase your humanity. It just changes how that humanity expresses itself. And when the time comes, when I can no longer live safely alone, that is where I will go. I have the papers drawn up. I have named Mrs. Chen as my power of attorney. I have made my wishes clear in legal documents that cannot be challenged. I have taken away everyone's ability to make this decision for me by making it myself while I still can. Does that make David's actions less horrible? Does that mean he was right all along? No, absolutely not. Because the difference is consent. The difference is timing. The difference is motive. David wanted to commit me to steal my money and take my house. He wanted to drug me into submission before I was actually incapable of caring for myself. He wanted to erase me for his own benefit. I am choosing to go to Meadowbrook to protect myself, to ensure my own safety, to maintain my dignity for as long as possible. I am not being taken. I am walking through the door myself, and that changes everything. That makes all the difference in the world, because this is my story. This is my life. And even as it slips away from me, even as my mind betrays me, even as I forget more and more each day, I get to decide how it ends. Not David, not any facility, not the disease. Me, I decide, until I cannot decide anymore. And then the choices I made while I could still choose, those will speak for me. This is why I wanted to share this story with you. Not just to tell you about betrayal and drugs and white vans and court cases, but to tell you about choices, about dignity, about the difference between helping someone and controlling them, about the impossible balance between independence and safety, about the fact that sometimes the people who love us most can hurt us most, about the fact that diseases like Alzheimer's do not just steal memories, they steal futures, they steal relationships, they steal trust. About the fact that we need to have these conversations before we are in crisis, before someone is standing over us with pills crushed in tea, before the van is parked outside, before it is too late to speak for ourselves. We need to talk about what we want. We need to put it in writing. We need to choose people we trust to advocate for us. We need to make our wishes known while we still have the capacity to make wishes at all. If you are watching this and you have an aging parent, talk to them. Ask them what they want. Ask them what their fears are. Ask them who they trust. And then honor those wishes, even when it is hard, even when it is inconvenient, even when you think you know better. Because the greatest gift you can give someone who is losing their mind is the assurance that their choices, made when they were still fully themselves, will be respected and honored. That they will not be discarded or overridden or dismissed just because they can no longer argue for themselves. That their humanity will be recognized and protected even when their cognition fails. That is love. That is real love. Not doing what is easiest for you. Not making decisions based on inheritance or convenience or impatience, but honoring the person they were and the person they still are, underneath the disease that is taking them away piece by piece. And if you are watching this and you are the aging parent, the one who is starting to forget, the one who is scared about what comes next, I want you to know that you are not alone. I want you to know that your fears are valid. I want you to know that you still have time to make choices. You still have time to advocate for yourself. You still have time to put safeguards in place. Do it now. Do not wait. Talk to a lawyer. Create legal documents. Name someone you trust as your power of attorney. Make your wishes clear. Decide what you want and write it down in a way that cannot be disputed, because that is how you protect yourself. That is how you maintain your dignity. That is how you ensure that when the time comes, you are cared for in the way you want to be cared for, not in the way that is most convenient for everyone else. You are worth that. Your life is worth that. Your story is worth that. I do not know how much longer I have before the fog takes over completely. Some days are better than others. Some days I feel sharp and clear and fully myself. Other days I struggle to remember what I had for breakfast, or whether I took my medication, or what year it is. The bad days are becoming more frequent. The good days feel more precious because I know they are numbered, but I am grateful for every single one. I am grateful for the ability to tell this story while I still can. I am grateful that my mind is still clear enough to make plans for my own future. I am grateful that I fought back when David tried to take that ability away from me. I am grateful that I have this community, you watching right now, bearing witness to my story. Because stories matter. Stories are how we make sense of our lives. Stories are how we connect with each other. Stories are how we say, I was here, I mattered, I existed, I loved and lost, and fought, and survived. And even when my memory is gone, this story will remain. This record of who I was and what I chose, and how I faced the worst thing that could happen to me with whatever dignity and courage I could muster. Before I finish, I want to thank you for staying with me through this entire journey. Thank you for listening. Thank you for witnessing. Thank you for caring about an old woman who is losing her mind, but trying desperately to hold on to her humanity. If this story touched you, if it made you think, if it changed how you see your own aging parents or your own future, then please share it. Share it with your family. Share it with your friends. Share it with anyone who needs to hear that dignity matters, that choices matter, that the way we treat our elders reflects the kind of society we are building. And please, please, come back to this channel, because there are more stories like mine. There are more voices that need to be heard. There are more people fighting to be seen and valued and remembered. And when you subscribe, when you watch, when you engage, you are telling all of us that our stories matter, that we matter, that even at the end, even when everything is slipping away, we still deserve to be heard. My name is Margaret. I am 73 years old. I have Alzheimer's disease. My son tried to steal my life. I fought back. I am still fighting. And I will keep fighting for as long as I can to make sure that my story and stories like mine are never silenced. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. And remember, when someone tells you their story, really listen, because someday you might need someone to listen to yours.